Hello, Internet. My name is Owen Bickford. This is my channel. This is my second live stream, and hopefully this one runs a little bit better than the last one. Figured out a couple of issues with the video camera. We're not going to say who accidentally left it disabled. Anyway, it's 11 o'clock at night. We all make mistakes. Touched up my Twitch setup a little bit here. Also did some things with my lights just to make it a little bit more fun, and because that was easier than actually working on the project. So here we are. So I figured what I would do today is tonight. For me, it's 11 o'clock, 11:12 here local time. And I figured I would talk about something I learned today about the issue I had yesterday about the errors not showing up whenever you would validate the user. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my screen. So I don't know if you watched the previous live stream. We kind of walked through where I've started with LiveShowy and with the registration process that does not need passwords. It was about an hour long. Definitely take a look at the last video if you're curious to learn more about that. It's called WebAuthn. It's really cool, and means I don't have to worry about my database getting breached for passwords. There are other reasons to secure the database, but anyway. So one thing I ran into was I was having trouble with errors not showing up. So if this user was already in the database, it was supposed to render a message that you could not register with this username, with this email address. And then the same thing with the username. If it's already been taken, you would want to know that before you try to sign up. Now, I have cleared the database, so I'm going to go ahead and register again just so you can kind of see what that looks like. This is the WebAuthn flow. So at this point, it's registered. The browser has a session storage with user token. So covered all of that in the last video. And then what's new is if I try to fill out this form again, I get real-time errors. So this is where Phoenix Live View really shines. So you can see I'm getting different errors as I start typing, and I should have an error here. Oh, I should not have an error because I've not used that. So fake.com. There we go. So this is the error I was looking for. If this email has already been taken, it's going to return this error on the form. Same thing with the username. Now that I'm going to start typing in a username, let me make sure this is showing up in the database. Okay. I may not have added the unique constraint for this. So let me open up the user. Validate username, validate unique constraint username. Okay, so I've got this unique constraint on the username. This is being run on this registration change set. But I'm not seeing the unique username error, so let's just try this again. Yeah, sure enough, it's not. Aha, I think I know why. So on the form, so I have the change handler here. No, there's nothing really special between those two fields. Let's see. So when there's a change, I need to check the change user registration. This is probably in the accounts context. Okay, so it's taking the user, which is a user struct. It's taking whatever attributes I'm sending in. But I'm not seeing the error when I try to reuse the same, like an existing username. Okay, so it's going Just put these in order here. I like to keep my tabs sorted whenever I can, especially when I'm trying to think through a problem. So this is where like the live view is. It's calling the accounts module with the change user registration function. So if I jump into accounts, look at that function, I see that it's calling the user module with a registration change set. Registration change set is casting the email and username. It's validating the email. It's validating the username. Let's give this username a message. Create a user with this username. I think this... Okay. Now, I know there are some files that have to be recompiled. Don't get recompiled automatically. Okay. So now, nothing. Okay, so it's hitting the username. It's validating that it's required. It's validating. So if I type in more than 80 characters, I should see another message. That must be at most 80 characters. But the unique constraint is not actually showing an error. Unique constraint. Okay. I bet I don't have a unique constraint on the table. Let's see, users auth. Sure enough. Okay, so I need to actually create a unique constraint for the user, for the username. So this is how you do that. I'm going to do ecto.gen.migration. Before I do this, I just want to check my migrations, make sure there isn't one sitting there that I'm ignoring. Yeah, there's only one migration. So there's a migration file right here. That's the only one. Add username constraint. All right, so this will generate like an Elixir file, which I can find now. Okay, and then, by the way, if you're ever in VS Code and you want to directly go to a file or jump to a file or just do fuzzy finding, you can hit Command P if you're on a Mac, and it will bring up that little drop down that I was typing into. So here's what I'm going to do. Create unique index on the table users. It's going to be on the column username. That's all there is to it. So now I can run that migration. This is going to generate a unique index for the users table on the column username. I could do a complex index here. I could add multiple columns. That's not something I really need in this case. So I'm going to run the migration. Relation username index already exists. Okay, that's interesting. There is a unique index. Ooh, twist. Okay, so I didn't need that migration after all. I'm just going to delete that. Okay, username string unique index on users. We have the email index. We have a username index. But we're not getting a unique constraint error. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm actually going to add an IO inspect so I can just kind of see what errors are showing up in the IEX shell. So yeah, I guess I need to restart the server. By the way, these errors over here just happen whenever the server has been stopped. That's because the page is checking for any reason to refresh the page, and if the server's not there, it's going to error out. Okay, so I'm getting the email error over here. And then what if okay, so if I do that, Owen is the username in the database. This is weird. Okay, so we have the database says that it has a unique index. Let's see, structure. We've got a user. This is probably tiny on the screen here, but I have a unique index on the username column. Huh. Well, this one doesn't make any sense. I must be missing something. Let me try clearing the email error and see if maybe that's the reason why. Okay, so this doesn't seem to be an issue with the email. So the theory there for a second was maybe the email error is kind of stopping the username error from showing up. That doesn't seem to be the case, though. I mean, I did see, yeah, so if I delete this, I get the username and the email error, both at the same time. What's going on here? Taking the user, that's going to be the first argument to this function. The params are going to be the second argument. So going back to the reason the reason I started this video, this was the issue that I ran into, or this was the solution for the problem that I ran into. So I wasn't sure why these messages were not showing up until I'd hit submit. And it turns out there was this, I think this is a bug. It seems to be a known bug. One of the maintainers, I don't want to blast anybody here. I'm not really complaining either, but yeah, there's a quirk related to the Phoenix change set. It wasn't really designed back in the day, years ago, for LiveView, because LiveView's a lot newer than Ecto change sets and Phoenix change sets. So this was the thing I had to do. If action was nil, then it would not render these errors on change events. So I have to basically kind of add like some arbitrary value to the action key so that these errors will show up. Why is not a question I can answer, but it was an easy enough fix. So yeah, that has solved that issue. Okay. So yeah, I don't understand why it's not showing like this. Like I should be getting an error here because Owen is already taken as a username, but I'm not getting that. This is normally the point where I'd probably get up and take a quick break, and it would occur to me what I've missed here. But it's not obvious in the moment. So that's the validate email function. This is the validate. They're all taking the change set and passing it along with their own validations. That's the nice thing about Elixir is you can just pipe these things together, and as long as your first argument is consistent, you can make these functions pipeable. Okay, yeah, I just don't know. Username doesn't seem to be a typo issue. These are all matching. Required. While I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and add a minimum of, let's say 3. I think I don't want usernames to be any shorter than 3 characters long. For no reason, just because. It seems like that's something that'll probably change. Huh. Unique constraint. I mean, if there was a typo here, I would be getting the process would be crashing. I would see some squigglies, and I would get an error message of some kind in the shell. So yeah, who knows? Who knows? This is the only thing I see different between the two. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to apply this to the username. And let's just see what happens. Okay, that is what was missing. Unsafe validate unique. Let's look that up. I'm not sure exactly what that function is. I have an idea, but I just want to know. Change set. So I know that this is going to be a function from the change set module. So we should be able to find it quickly here. Unsafe validate unique. There it is. So just to make this readable. Validates that no existing record with a different primary key has the same values for these fields. Function exists to provide quick feedback to users of your application. It should not be relied upon for any data guarantee, race conditions, yada yada. Okay. So this is kind of like an early check. It's not the last thing you want to, it's not the, like you want to do a, like this is going to be kind of like a preliminary check. And whenever you persist into the database, you're going to do you're really going to actually validate that there's a unique constraint. Okay, I've probably butchered that explanation. Anyway, so I've got my error showing up now. Whenever I've tried to use a username or email that's already been taken, I get errors if these fields are blank or invalid, and I get very helpful messages. So I could say, of course, this doesn't validate that this is a real email address. It just validates that the text appears to be correct, like a valid format of an email address. That's kind of funny. So let's see here. If I'm typing in again, fake.com, I'll get that. You cannot create email. I cannot create an account with this email error message. I should probably start doing these earlier in the day when I have more energy. Probably sound a little bit exhausted. I'm really not. But I did have the thought going into this that if I can be the Bob Ross of live coding or Elixir live streams, then you know what? That's fine with me. Okay, so what's the next thing I want to work on? I think I can hack away at something for another 15 to 30 minutes. May not finish anything, but I think what I want to do now, so where am I at? I think what I want to do is I want to implement login or like session. I want to make sure that the app is aware that a user has been signed in or registered, and I want it to detect when there's a session storage token So in this case, there isn't one because I've reloaded the registration page, and I've told the registration page to go ahead and clear the token if there is one. That way, a new user is kind of not stepping on the toes of a user token. Just a way of kind of cleaning up things. Okay, so all that is to say, now I can jump into the login page. So these are under my auth path here. Login, register. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and update my, before I'm done with the register, I want to update my naming to be consistent. So choices. I think I'm going to stick with underscores. You know what? No, I think URLs are supposed to kind of stick with hyphens and not underscores, generally, if I remember correctly from somewhere. Okay, so, maybe it bothers you that login doesn't have a hyphen, but, it's a word. Sign in, maybe these days you could count that as a word, but it has a hyphen. So I'm going to go ahead and rename my module as well. This might throw an error. Let's see. Need to rename the file. Yep, there we go. There's an error. All right, now we can do some quick search. Register. Ooh, is it going to be sign in path with an underscore? I think it is. Maybe not. All right, this is why we have this mixed task for listing the routes. Phoenix.routes. User sign-in path. Oh, yeah, I see what's happening. So I need to go to navbar. Need to go to the sign-in path, and then this is going to be sign in. This is what I was missing here. There we go. All right, so now the world can go back and be peaceful. I'm going to go ahead and just save this work. I'm a big fan of just doing work in progress commits, especially if I'm not collaborating with anyone else on a branch. I can't imagine working that way, where 2 or 3 developers are working on the same branch on different machines. That sounds like a nightmare. Fortunately, typically when I'm developing it, well, on this app, I'm the only developer, but even on my day job, I'm working with other developers on different projects. We work in separate branches. Those things all get merged back into the main branch, and everyone can work with a relatively decent peace of mind. Okay, so where do I want to go from here? I'm going to close the nav bar. I'm going to close the router. I'm going to close accounts. I'm going to close the user. Okay, and then I think what I need now is I need to open the login. Okay, so this is just a this is a preliminary live view that I've created just to kind of make sure that the route is accessible. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this whole thing, this render function, because I kind of want it to work the same way. I will eventually get around to copy editing some stuff that's more helpful and reassuring, maybe. Welcome back. But for now, this will do. Okay, so I've got to add my aliases. I'm going to bring all these back in. Go ahead and require logger as well, because I'll probably be logging stuff. All right, chain set. Ooh, there is no chain set. You know what? This is actually going to work a little bit different. So, do I actually need a change set here? Because I'm not going to be checking the username or the email address the same way. So I don't need to handle change events. I think what I may do is I may just put this in a key if this works the way I think it does. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add my fallback handler so I can catch messages that are not implemented yet. So this is a handle event. This will just kind of log out messages whenever I haven't implemented something in this live view. Really, I could probably make this a macro so that it could just be added to multiple. Maybe I could put this in the live view. Let's talk about distractions. Let's see. Okay, so live view. So this is where the live view macro is defined. So basically, anytime you set up a live view, typically you'll type something like this at the very top. You'll probably have a module doc because you're going to be a little bit better at documenting your things probably. But yeah, so this basically just says look at LiveShowy web, which is this module here, and use this the macro from this function name. So this syntax might be a little bit odd, but just trust me, what it's doing is it's kind of taking this section and dumping it at the top of the live view file and kind of unquoting things so that these functions actually get implemented within that live view. So if I wanted to, so the reason I'm thinking about this at the moment is I could keep copying and pasting this into every single live view just to get those nice debug messages. And I'll probably do that for today because I don't want to spend this video working on this particular problem. But I do think that I could put that in here. And it would, you know what? I could actually just try that, couldn't I? It might shout at me because this is going to be in a very different place. I don't even know if this is how it works. Let's find out. Okay, I need to require a logger here. Or actually, I could probably just require a logger in this one function because this will, I think, make a little bit more sense. Kind of have a feeling this is not going to work. Okay. Okay, let's just see if I'm going to add change back. just so I can kind of see messages showing up in real time. That's amazing. Okay, that is really cool. That is so cool. Okay. That's really cool. Okay, so now I can remove. So in the last version of LiveShowy, this hadn't crossed my mind, but so I've had these functions living in a bunch of different modules, and now I know I don't actually need to do that. I can just put them into the macro, and they'll be kind of injected for me, and that's really cool. So the reason that's nice is because there's another one that I need to add for modules for live views that are going to subscribe. They need to handle info messages. And if I don't handle them, I don't want the process to crash. I just want to see some debug information. So this is what that looks like. Debug. I think I'm going to move require logger here. I'm going to say unknown message and module message. That's it. That's all I need to log. And then I'll return the socket. You know what, Internet? I think this might be something to propose in the Phoenix repo, the Phoenix Live View repo. Let me post something in Slack because I think having these functions, so basically I'm defining these callbacks that will handle these events and messages, just in case I haven't, implemented those in my own code yet, within a Live View module. And I could make the case that that would actually be a good idea within the Phoenix app to have this in there as a default. So just to take a quick look at Phoenix Live View, what other callbacks would we need to do that for? Okay, so there's handle call, handle cast, handle event, handle info, handle params. Now I could probably do this for each of those callbacks. I might ask the community, the maintainers first to see if does this make sense in the first place? Does it make sense to do only handle event, handle info? Because I think those are probably the two most common. Or does it make sense to render kind of fallback or default callbacks for these other handlers? So that's something I'll be chatting about tomorrow, probably in the Slack. But it's just really nice to see that that was easier than I thought it was actually going to be. Okay. All right, so back to logging in. All right, so I don't really need to change events because I want when you log in, just since I'm a new Twitch user, I'm noticing that they collect they collect email and username, but they only let you sign in with a username. I wonder if there's a security reason for that, or if it's just a decision they made. But I'm inclined to do the same thing. The email address, your email might change. You might be coming back to change your email address. The username is probably going to be shorter and easier to enter. Your password manager, if you have one, even though I'm not storing passwords, your password manager may actually pick up on the username and save it for you. So let's allow users to sign in with username only. Okay, and then so I've already got my handle web authn hook connected. This is going to be my login form. What else do I need to change here? We need to change this to login. I need to go to the nav bar. And right here, I'm going to capitalize that I just to be consistent. Okay, that was nice. Okay, so now let's say I type in my username and I hit login. I'm going to get this debug message here. There was a submit message with this payload, and it was not handled by this live view. I love that. Okay, so now I can implement that. Def handle event submit. I want to grab the user and then the username from that. This is actually a little bit verbose. I probably just want to, let's take a look at the Surface docs. I'm not sure what my options are for this for attribute. So Surface, we're gonna go to the form. Atom or chain set to inform the form data. Okay, this is based on the Phoenix HTML form 4. So I'm gonna have to go digging a little bit deeper. Phoenix HTML should be in my history, but it's not. Okay, form 4. Okay. I don't know if there is another way to do this, so I'm just going to stick with the user key, which means that I get a user key here with the username inside of that map. Okay, that's actually fine. There's not really a problem there. I was just trying to whittle it down a little bit. I always like to, I think this is a habit I formed back when I was learning JavaScript a few years ago. Anytime, so like the VS Code, most editors now will, like when you're typing a quote, a parenthesis, a bracket or something, it will kind of give you the opening and closing for that automatically, and that's really nice. But I also like to get in the habit of, whenever I'm setting up something, like I'm adding some boilerplate, I like to add like the thing I might forget at the end. So if I'm writing like in JavaScript, if I was writing a function, like a reduce function, I would, write the signature, open brackets, close brackets, and then before I would do anything else, I would say return ACK, or return accumulator, or return result, whatever I called it. And then I would add lines above that to actually do the changes to the data. So this is just another example of that. Like I know I've got a handle event, and I know it has to return a no reply with the socket. So I type that in first before I actually start hacking away, because I might forget and I just don't want to see an error because of that. Now this is not the final result. I'll be changing that once I'm done with the internals here. So what needs to happen? A user types in a username, they hit login, and from there, this submit event will fire. Okay. So this is another thing I learned. I think I picked this up from Scott and Wes. I think it was Wes that, maybe Scott, I don't know who talked about this, but when you're trying to think through a multi-step process that you need to implement, It's really helpful. Scott and Wes of Syntax FM, Syntax Podcast, great guys. But I know I've got a few steps that I need to execute here, so I'm going to make notes for myself of the things I need to do, maybe the order I need to do them in. So this is not really to do later. This is for me to do right now. So I'm going to do, actually I need to look at the wax docs for this. Okay, so I've completed the registration process. What I'm working on now is authenticating. Okay, so I need to create a new authentication challenge. Okay, I need to save challenge and process memory. I also like to write things that are maybe easy but easily forgotten. Okay, so then the next thing I would do is I would push that data to the socket. So this is where I've had to do a little bit of kind of tweaking. These docs are designed before live view, so they talk about putting things in session. I don't use session because I'm not using the connection. I'm not using a regular controller. So I'm sending all this across the socket. So my steps are a little bit different here, but not by much. Send challenge data to the Phoenix hook. Okay, so those are the steps that are going to happen in that function. And while I'm thinking about it, handle event. I'm going to call this version authenticate. It looks like I will be receiving raw ID. We'll be receiving some data from, let's just call this payload for now. I'm not sure exactly the shape of this data that's going to be coming across. It may be just these keys. So raw ID, authenticator data, SIG, I think is going to be signature, and then client data JSON. This will be the challenge that's going to be in the process. So the first step here, like I said, no reply socket, just to make sure there's no errors. Let's see. So the first step would be to get the challenge from the process memory. I would almost bet money that I'm going to have to do some decoding. Payload data, and that may not be fully documented, so stay tuned for the next live stream I'm going to be wrapping up in a minute. Decode payload data, call wax.authenticate. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an arity of 5. And redirect on success flash error if there is one. If flash error on failure. I try to make these things sound rational. Like, I want these things to make sense if I come back at it and look at it tomorrow. Because I've learned the hard way. Sometimes I'll take notes and I'd be a little bit too terse, so I don't kind of word things in in a thoughtful way, and I had to kind of decipher, yesterday's Owen. I'm not sure if you ever run into that, but yeah, it's something that it's a skill. It's a lot of leaving notes that you can understand in the future, either the next day or the next month, or the next quarter, or the next year. That's a skill. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, because this is going to be a little bit of a process. I do think I want to live stream this as well, and I'll probably actually publicize the live stream when I do that. Expecting to do that tomorrow, depending on what the weather's doing. Yeah, it's going to be rainy, so I'll probably be inside all day, at least in the afternoon. There we go. Now we got a plan. Cool. So look forward to live streaming more about this tomorrow. I'll be getting the login flow completed, hopefully. Now that I've got registration, that was probably the biggest hurdle, just because I was kind of learning as I was going and adapting things that were not really designed for live view and making those work for live view. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to working on logins tomorrow. And should be fun. As much fun, the same kind of fun as watching Bob Ross paint, maybe. So, if you know Bob Ross, there are no mistakes, there's only happy accidents. So I look forward to making many of those tomorrow, probably many more happy accidents than I've made so far. So anyway, if you're watching this, I don't know, no one's watching it live, but if you're watching this in the future, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Owen Bickford, or maybe send me a message on Twitch. And maybe I'll start live streaming earlier in the day when I get the words right out of my mouth. Anyway, this has been fun. I will catch up with you later. Good night.